Hello, Ridgefield Playhouse. I'm Cheryl Washington, host of the Real to Real movie series, where we spotlight real life on film. And today we are going to go beyond the story of the movie Fruitvale Station in recognition of Black History Month. And I'm so happy to be able to talk to our guest about this. But let me just give you a little bit of explanation about Fruitvale Station, even though you've just seen it. It debuted in 2013 as a biographical drama starring Michael B. Jordan as 22-year-old Oscar Grant, who was gunned down by a San Francisco Bay Area rapid transit police officer in the early morning hours on New Year's Day, 2009. The film received critical acclaim at the Sundance Film Festival as well as the Cannes Film Festival. And we are delighted today to be able to talk with someone who knows the story quite intimately. My guest is the Reverend Wanda Johnson, who is an ordained minister, and she is the mother of the late Oscar Grant, who was victimized through police brutality by a Bay Area rapid transit police officer, as I just explained a few moments ago. She's also president and CEO of the Oscar Grant Foundation, and she's a strong advocate and activist in the fight for justice. Reverend Johnson, I am delighted to be able to talk to you. It must still be a very painful time to be able to go back to this and to revisit this, especially during Black History Month, when I'm sure you get inundated and barraged with so many requests for interviews. But we at the Ridgefield Playhouse are really happy to be able to talk to you because this movie clearly hits home for many of us. When I first saw it, somewhat 11 years ago, it affected me in one kind of way. But I have to say to you, quite honestly, that the pain has not gone away. The relevancy of it has not gone away. In fact, I think it's maybe even more impactful in 2024 than it was back in 2013. Can I just get your reaction to that before we move on to other areas of the film?
First, Cheryl, thank you for having me on today. And I definitely agree that the relevancy today is even more impactful than it was when it first happened. When Oscar was first killed in 2009, there was very little talk about police killings. And so when it happened, it got worldwide attention, but not as much traction as it could have gotten or it would have gotten today.
Or should have gotten.
And should have gotten, exactly. And so now, today, we have seen so many unjust killings that you look at the story and you say, wow, I didn't realize this happened in 2009 so long ago, but it should have been amplified even more. And now that we're in 2024, more people are aware of what has happened with Oscar and aware of the disparity in the killings of African-American young men and even young women.
You're talking about 15 years ago when it happened. The movie came out 11 years ago, but that period does not mitigate what took place. Mm-hmm. We are still bogged down with what takes place today in terms of seeing things that really do seem unconscionable. I'm just wondering, how do you go through your day-to-day activities, your semblance of clarity? How does that happen, Reverend?
So for me, when it was years ago before Oscar was killed, that the thing that the Lord told me that we would be in ministry together. And so I had thought, he told me that Oscar would go through some things. So I thought Oscar would struggle and go through some different things, but we would actually be in churches or in pulpits or different places speaking about the Lord together. Never did I imagine that Oscar would be killed. And then when Oscar was killed, I was like, well, how could we be in ministry together? He's not here any longer. And so the Lord began to remind me and begin to have me to look around. And in looking around, I saw a host of people that I had never met before. And I was like, okay, I see all these people. And the Lord reminded me that is the ministry, because now I'm seeing you, I'm speaking with you about what happened with Oscar, but I'm also speaking with a broader audience to say that, Oscar was killed unjustly. And so in that, it's important for me to realize, and that's what helped with my healing journey along with my mother. being able to really look around and see all the faces, being able to share Oscar's story, and being able to encourage other mothers and families who have lost their loved ones by community or police violence.
And is that one of the reasons why you launched and founded the Oscar Grant Foundation back in 2010?
We founded it in 2010, and it was one of the reasons why we started was to bridge the gap because we saw the unjust service that my son received when he was killed unnecessarily, and we knew that it wasn't just an isolated incident. And the only reason why it became a published incident, uh, a filming all around the world with being able to watch the video is because some citizen took the time to film what was going on. And so we can just not even imagine how many times this has happened and it has not been filmed. And so we felt it necessary as a family to share Oscar's story throughout the world.
You would think because there were so many cell phones that were exposed to what took place on that fateful night, that the outcome would have been a lot different. And I do remember, if I'm not mistaken, that the police officer was set free after what, 11 months that he served in some kind of community jail. Is that what it was?
He served in a county jail,
County
11
jail.
months, 11 months in county jail. And that is correct. And so we don't call that a victory. We say it's history. Why? Because that was the first time in California history an on-duty officer was charged with an on-duty shooting. And so even though we did not get the charge, what we wanted and what we know we deserved, what we deserve is for Oscar to be here first, right? And
Sure.
so we wanted a charge and we didn't get the charge that we wanted because partly because when we look at the makeup of the juries, we didn't have not one African American juror.
Wow.
Number two, the trial was relocated to another city 400 miles from where the incident occurred. Number three, when we got into the courtroom, the judge said that he had already made up his mind in his decision of the officer. And so we knew that we had an unfair going with the trial. We knew that it wasn't going to be right. And so when we did get that verdict, we weren't surprised about the verdict. We weren't surprised at all. When the judge decided to change, when the jury came back with the gun enhancement charge and the charge that involuntary, the judge said he gave the jury the wrong instructions, so he threw out the gun enhancement charge, which would have gave the officer an extra 10 years. And we don't really talk about that, but it's so very important. And so we knew that we were fighting a battle.
It was an uphill battle.
An uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
And so we vowed that, when the officer was charged, that we would not just stop, that we would bring awareness and we would work with other families to ensure that they get the justice that they deserve for their loved one. And if they don't get the justice, that the communities and the country will know what they've gone through with the loss of their loved one.
Not that you would need to know this, but do you happen to know where the police officer is today?
I do not know where he's at today. I knew one time he was in the Los Angeles area being able to do some kind of security guard job, but I have not, in the last year, I have not been aware of where he's at.
Granted. Let me talk to you a little bit also about the foundation, because clearly this was maybe a catharsis for you to be able to start this in your son's memory. Could you tell me why the foundation, but primarily the mission? And you hinted at how you help other families. I just kind of want to get even a broader stroke, if you don't mind, of how this works.
Okay. So after Oscar was killed, we was in LA. with some other people. And my brother and I, he's been very instrumental with helping with the foundation, helping getting it started, taking the baton when I couldn't even, walk or crawl to be able to lift my head to get it started. So we started the foundation, and it was important to bring awareness to our communities of the systemic violence that African American young men faced. And so our goal is to bridge the gap between policing and the community. And in order to do that, you have to be able to get into these police stations and to share, what happened with Oscar, and to really share the pattern of practices that have been practiced over the years. In other words, because if you watch Fruitvale Station, there is a scene that has a scene of the dog that got hit, and you will see Michael carrying it across the street to the gas station. Okay.
Yes.
That scene was not an accident put in there. It was put in there because oftentimes our young men are considered as being the ones who carry the guns, but not that part, but being considered as bulldogs, that they're aggressive, right? Our young men have an aggressive tendency. So the dog that fitted that was the dog that was in the picture, to show this is how we are being depicted as basically aggressive African American young men. And so we had to put that in because we want people to know, in order for us to bridge the gap, it's going to require a different process of thinking. You cannot always think, and you should not think, that African American young men are aggressive, that they always carry a gun. You can't always think that about African American young men. And so our goal is to bring information, to bring a fact to where the police will begin to look at it differently, that they will not just look at African American people and say, hey, that young man has a gun, or that young man is aggressive, so now I could say that he's reaching for a gun, or he's going to run.
Can I talk about the symbolism behind that dog? And I'm glad that you said that, because I'm thinking of the civil rights movement and how the dogs, were also let out to basically attack Black people in those moments of peace and marching against violence. And the dogs were let go, the hoses were sprayed, etc. But what I was going to say is that as I thought about that dog and I thought about Oscar in that moment, it showed a sensitivity that we may not have realized. And I think that it was important that that scene was put there at that particular juncture, because, even though there were some things that took place prior to what we saw inevitably, Oscar had compassion. Oscar's life was changing. Oscar had empathy. And so those aspects of what we saw needed to be depicted. And I'm sure from your standpoint as a mom, that was important to you.
Oh, absolutely. Because if you look at the videos and if you talk to Oscar friends today, you will hear them saying that in the midst of the whole situation, Oscar was trying to be that peacemaker. Oscar was trying to tell his friends, hey, you guys be quiet. Let's follow the instructions and we're going home today. Oscar was the one saying, hey, can we talk to somebody who's in charge, right? Because the officer who was in charge should not have been in charge because of the way that he was acting. And so Oscar was there trying to calm a situation down, while those who was hired to protect and serve was there escalating a situation.
Okay.
And so yes, that scene with the dog there was so important because, and as you talked about civil rights, you look at that in the 60s, where my family's from Alabama, where all that was going on.
Sure.
You look at that and you'll see that the people that was marching for a cause for systems to be changed, and yet they were being punished by being water hosed, by being attacked by dogs, by
Mhm.
being hit with billy clubs. And
Sure.
so that's why it's so important. Fruitvale Station was so very important because, first of all, it was the first time that you can probably look back and see a movie of this magnitude, of a real life story being displayed, and someone losing their life unnecessarily or killed unnecessarily, and then all the different symbols that was in the
Mhm.
movie that could have been picked up on.
Sure, I agree with that. I agree with that. In fact, if we can go back to that scene, that platform scene, it just brings me back to what you must have thought. Clearly, it was an aftermath because you weren't there. But I'm imagining when he was lying on that platform, and I can't remember the exact words. I can't. You shot me. I think it was right.
Mhm. Yes.
That as a mother, again, I'm going to have to go back to this mother analogy, if you don't mind. I'm wondering what was going through him at that moment when that took place, because it's no different from what we've heard about other people who have been brutally violated based on systemic racism. And I'm just wondering what you thought when those words, because I'm remembering from the scene in the movie, if you had any sensitivity
Mhm.
about those words in particular, and in fact, that maybe he was trying to reach out to you.
So let me say, my birthday's December 31st. So
Right.
that was the last day that we
It was
got
a
to.
birthday party that they
Mhm.
celebrated.
Yep.
Correct.
So we
Mhm.
celebrated my birthday together. And so I told him to take the means of transportation by taking part.
Yes.
So when that happened, the first thing that tried to attack me was guilt, because maybe if I would not have told him to take Bart, this is what I was first saying, that it would not have happened. And so when I seen him on the platform, it took a while for me to even look at that uh, video, right? And so when I seen, I began to say, because he did say, "You shot me. I have a 4-year old daughter."
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I began to think about, what was he thinking?
Mm.
I began to say, he was saying to me, from all of his actions, "Mom, I'm not doing anything wrong." And here we are at this juncture where I'm on the platform. And I began to really look at it and say, what was he saying? Was he praying? Was he talking to God? You know, what was he saying to me? Um, and I have a book that's coming out. It's called From Tragedy to Triumph. It should be out on the 24th of this month. And in that, I talk about um, that particular part of it, because it's so, so important. When things happen like that for me, um, it was a sense of me having to deal with the guilt first for telling him to go. And so I talk about that because there's other people who have faced similar situations, maybe not death, but have faced other situations where they felt guilty because of what happened or something happened. And so I give tools on how to overcome that guilt, right? But as I watched Oscar lay on the platform, I believe, this is my belief, even though they was taking him, had the ambulance come take him to the hospital, I believe that as he laid on that platform, that his spirit had already left his body.
Mm.
I believe that he was already transitioned.
Mm.
Even though they had to take him to the hospital, they said he was coherent. They, gave the surgery. They said he maybe could make it, but one of his lungs was blew out, and they would have to remove the lung. And every time they tried to give blood, he was had so many different holes internally. It was like a water faucet that it just kept he
Mm.
just kept bleeding out. And so I believe that, he left us while he was laying on that
Mm.
platform. Um, I, I just, you know, seeing him there and his friends yelling and just working to process something that happened so unnecessarily has been such a journey for me. And I know that I am proud of Oscar. You know, I'm proud because I can truly say that he was working to de escalate a situation. I could truly say that he was not being immature, but really acting mature about what was going on. And he was displaying his leadership skills. So it hurts, but it makes me proud as his mother.
I hear the emotion in your voice, on your face. And I have to say, this is tough. I know. And as I talk with you, and I feel like we have a simpatico right now. I've never met you before, but I think anyone who has seen this film, anyone who knows the story, has to be sensitized by what was experienced. And for you to be able to, with such grace and such dignity, to still be able to talk about your son in such human terms, in terms of life, in terms of breath, I think that that's just admirable. And I don't know how you do it, Wanda. I just don't know how you do it.
Thank you. Only through prayer, let me tell you. I
I know you've got the
have
faith. I
not been
know.
for God. Hmm.
I know you've got the faith. I'm not going to try to belabor anything more because I think that this is a very tough interview for you, and I get it. But I do want to ask just a few more questions. You mentioned Oscar's daughter. I have to ask, where is she today? What is she doing? She was so extremely close to her dad.
She was, and I always share the story how when he found out that his fiance was pregnant, how he put two flags on his car, having saying "It's a girl," and he would ride around the neighborhood because he was so happy. And so he was so close to her, taking her to preschool and combing her hair, doing all kind of things that a father would do. Great plans for her and him. And she's doing very good. She's not far from where my mom lives, so we get to see her all the time. She works at the high school that he went to and that she went to, Mountain High School in Hayward. So she's doing really good. We're proud of her. We're actually coming, since we're at our 15th year anniversary. We actually have a gala coming up in February 24th weekend, because Oscar's birthday is on February 27th. So we have it that weekend where we bring mothers from across this country together in one spot. Um, and we host healing sessions. We host, sessions for the mothers. And then we have a gala that night. And so we're looking forward to that coming up on the 24th of February in Oakland, California. We actually have wonderful speakers and stuff who have come through and sang for us, spoke for us, and just participated each and every year.
Mhm.
So, you guys are welcome to come to California for
Sounds
this.
like it's going to be a beautiful event.
It does. We have we usually have Eric Gardner's mother, Michael Brown's mother, Tamira Rice's mother,
Mhm.
John Crawford's mother. We've been trying to get Philando Castile's mother. We are actually hoping to have Aubrey's mother, Wanda Cooper Jones, this year. So we gather a lot of people, some names not even known, but we gather those mothers and families here because we want them to know that they're not in this fight by themselves. And because they're not in the fight by themselves, we want to support them. I was just in Alabama last month with the family, my brother and I with the family. Her son was killed um, in Alabama, in Mobile. Uh, and he was shot. No, he was tased to death.
Okay. Mhm.
And so she'll be here with her son, I mean, with her husband. And so we have families coming from all over the globe that, will be here to get a weekend of healing, a weekend of togetherness, letting them know that they're not alone, that we support them, we fight with them, we go to court with them, we go to city council meetings with them, and so we will continue to do that as a family.
You talked about all those mothers, and I can only imagine when you all get together that the conversations have got to be so stark. It's got to be so difficult. You
You
all
know what?
share something in common, and that's not the commonality that you wanted.
We always say, it's a club that we never wanted to be in.
Mm-mm.
And now that we're in it, our job is to help other people who actually join. We don't want them to join. That's why we are out here. My family's out here on the front line fighting for change, fighting to get laws changed. We're up in Washington, D.C., we're up in our capital, working to get some of these rules that have been set changed. One of them trying to where decertification. My brother just got appointed by Gavin Newsom, the governor of
Oh.
California,
Mhm.
to a position where they look at the different cases of those officers who have been behaving badly and just make decisions if that officer should be decertified. And it's so important for decertification because if an officer kills in California, he could go apply to another state or even another city and get hired
As though it never happened.
as though it never happened. And so right now we have one officer who was in the California area who had killed a young man and then 3 months later killed another young man
Mm.
and then killed another young man.
Wow.
And all three young men are African American,
Mm.
right? And so but he still was able to keep his job.
Mm.
So finally, enough people begin to, stand up against that, where he was finally charged, but still he got 7 years. But you've killed three people,
Three people.
you
Three
know,
people.
and it's unacceptable. And so we always say, don't wait until somebody knocks on your door. You can get involved right now. You can help us to ensure that the laws are changed. You can help us by ensuring that you also, when you're given to be on a jury pool, that you also uh, join the jury pool, that you sign up, that you be a part of it, because since we're not a part of the jury pool, we don't really get the convictions or the things that we're really looking for because we're not taking part of it. And we have to begin to
Absolutely.
take part of it and more.
Civil responsibility. I'm going to ask you one more question, and that would be, what do you think Oscar's legacy would have been?
I think Oscar's legacy would have been Oscar was a person who loved to help people and he loved to be a leader. So I believe his legacy, what we're doing with the scholarships that we have been able to issue out, with the school supplies and backpacks that we have been able to issue out, with that, with the healing hurting program that we have, which is dealing with life after the loss,
Mhm.
I believe that that is the legacy that he would definitely want to continue. He loves sports. Um, the Oscar Grant Ballers, a AAU basketball team, with young men on it, four different teams. That was his passion. So everything that the foundation does is centered around the very things that Oscar, if he was alive, would be doing, and that would be helping others through education ways, through sports ways, and through example way.
You're a strong advocate for change, and we need you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere because your fight is not over.
No, it's not.
Fight is not over. It has to continue. And through all that you're doing, it's a moment that we all need to reckon with. And we thank you for what you have given us. The story will always live on. Oscar will always live on. And we hope that things will change in our future because things can't remain the same. They just can't. But through your advocacy, I believe that there will be some really important changes that will be shed. I really believe that. And thanks to you, we appreciate you. We here at the Richfield Playhouse really appreciate you. This was a very special moment for us in honor and recognition of Black History Month. And we thank you, Reverend Wanda Johnson, for being with us today. I know how difficult this was, but you have really you're running your course. You're running the race. You really are. And we
Thank
thank you. We
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much, Cheryl. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I just, I'm so thankful that you guys looked at Fruitvale Station and examined it. It was not an easy movie to make, and it was an opportunity for Ryan and Michael B. Jordan to get their breakout careers in their careers. And just Michael spending that time with him and talking with him and Octavia and even being in the movie. It was a movie that was started, when we came together, prayer would be there, you know. It was a movie that was a very low budgeted movie, but it did very well. And so, I'm forever grateful. And I know that my son's legacy will not end, that when I'm gone, it'll still be in history books. When I'm gone, his case will be talked about in the court systems when dealing with other cases. So I know that he left a legacy. He always said that he wanted to be a superstar or be known. And he's not here, but he's definitely known, across the United States and out of the United States in countries all over the world.
Mhm.
So my son did not die in vain.
I was going
But
to say that his living was not in vain. Yeah.
yep, he had a
Yes.
purpose and
Yes.
he completed his purpose,
Yes.
and
Yes.
his life will and legacy will live on.
Reverend Wanda Johnson, we thank you so much. Thank you for talking to us about your son, your beloved son, and of course the foundation after whom he is named. Thank you so much. We want to also thank the Aquarian Water Company for sponsoring this Beyond the Story feature for this particular movie, Fruitvale Station. Thank you all. We will see you on the very next edition.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.